Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Deadlock Load, episode 15. My name's Cryptic here with BSJ, and I'm super excited. We got some fun stuff to talk about this week. We're going to kick things off, of course, with the recent balance update that just came to Deadlock, and then we've also got a potential leak of a Valve-sponsored event that was talked about by one streamer, but we'll get to that stuff later on. I'm excited. This is it's always great to see some good Deadlock balance notes. And Brian, I'm really curious how you feel about this new one and how it kind of changes up some of the heroes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I were saying at the beginning of the year that we wanted to see them stray away from more balanced notes while focusing on bringing new heroes to the game. However, when you bring four new heroes to the game all at once, there's going to need to be some serious tweaking when it comes to those. Yeah, there's some minor buffs and nerfs to the other heroes in the game, but when I look at these patch notes, I'm seeing 85% of the hero changes be on the four new heroes, most of which are relatively drastic, meaning maybe they changed all four spells in some way or significantly reworked the method in which you would use Sinclair's ultimate, for instance. So I mean, there's also, we talked about it before we got here, our favorite patch note, Ava can now meow as a cat. I mean, that's really important stuff coming out here. So overall, happy to see a balanced patch because we definitely, I definitely think it's a necessary follow-up to them releasing new heroes and making the game still enjoyable, balance patch-wise, because you don't want to have these heroes feel clunky or overpowered. You want to find their niche in the game, and that's what this type of patch I feel like is working towards.
I agree. I think the Ava thing is so funny to me because this is just an M1 game, and it's like, well, when you're a cat, you don't get to press M1, but now you can.
Of
So
course.
it helps you stay locked in. You're like, all right, I'm still M1ing everywhere I go, but it's just meowing instead of firing bullets. So very
Basically the
very
same
important
thing.
update.
When
Yeah,
I get a meow, when a cat is meowing at me in real life, I mean, there's a lot of different things you can accomplish with a meow. Sometimes they're being all, cute and trying to ask for something. Sometimes they're threatening you and telling you to back off. I mean, it's powerful, man. You talk about the power of guns in this game, but that meow, I'm telling you.
could be good. Could be good. So we could kind of whiz through some of the patch notes here. I think, like you said, a lot of the stuff is towards the new heroes. There's a few small changes to some of the others, like Abrams getting a slight 1% buff to Infernal Resilience, which
Huge.
yeah, I mean that passive has been tweaked so many times up and down, but I think that's a good buff for him. The main things to focus on though, Calico again, they kind of fixed some of the bugginess around the leaping slash. I know the actual AOE and the effect sometimes didn't look like it was hitting, or when it did hit it, or when it looked like it should have hit, it didn't. Um, it can now hit breakables as well, which was just kind of like a little bit of a bug oversight. Um, and then the Ava build, where you just run around as a cat the whole game, has been slightly modified. Now you slow
Badge.
down if you take damage. It's a little bit slower, but the cooldowns end up being about the same. So it's it's of course they're trying to just balance it so you can't just spend the whole game in cat form, but people will still find a way.
Yeah, I think if a cat was getting shot, it would probably slow down by at least 30% for 1 second. So
At least, yeah.
they're really keeping in line with the immersion of the game. I'm just laughing because you think of the meow and I'm like, yeah, well, they definitely took out the fun of the build and then they replaced the meow, or then they inserted the meow. So yeah, it makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, we both thought it was really funny, the cat build, but if she's so fast you can't even hit her, that's not particularly good for the game either. So
Yeah, I agree. Um, I'm not sure how you feel about this, because Hayes did get some pretty big changes on her bullet dance T3s. So now has 60% evasion up from 40, and then 3 additional move speed instead of 2. So Hayes just getting a little bit of buff attention to bullet dance tier 3. I feel like this hero has really fallen off recently. Like a lot of the patch, like bullet heroes are just stronger than her, and so I don't know if this is enough, but it could mean that we'll see some like earlier tier 3 bullet dances than we used to in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's a relatively significant numbers buff, but I was also looking at the item nerfs at the bottom, and ammo scavenger, an item that she used to like, or she generally really likes to buy for the laning phase, got an ammo nerf, which heavily affects haze. Swift striker got a 2% fire rate, an item she almost always buys, and bullet lifesteal, usually like her early to mid game sustain item, got nerfed as well. So it's almost like not only was she already in a weird spot balance wise, but they definitely needed to give her something. I remember whenever I watched Dota balance patch notes that, you got to think about the indirect nerfs that are not exactly at the hero, but she definitely felt a few of those. And so I'm curious. Yeah, I'm definitely curious if people are going to go for that earlier bullet dance. Because right now, like, you can chase a little bit faster and it's pretty much impossible to shoot back at you. I think that's mostly like a big deal against stuff. Why am I now blanking on the damn name? The blade mail.
Return fire.
Oh, return fire. Yeah, gosh. It's like really good against that because of the 60% evasion effectively makes that do like 33% less damage than it was before. And a lot of times in the early game, like Hayes would like kill herself faster than she'd kill you if it was like an early return fire rush. So yeah, overall, I'd definitely be curious to see that, but it's also not exactly interactive and fun gameplay, so maybe it's not exactly what I want to see either. Just like, I think of her as like the finesse shooter, right? And then kind of always counterintuitive that you're now playing around her ulti, but either way, I'm curious to see what people start to do if she makes her comeback.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Up next was Holiday. Some of the big changes to her again, being one of the new heroes. People kind of found a build that was less than fun to play against. It was known as the juggle build. You would just toss powder cakes over and over, infinitely locking people out of the game and stunning them until they would die. There was no counter to it outside of like E shift or unstoppable. But even if you like E shift it, you just wait until they come out of E shift and then you just continue to do it. So it was rough. So this has been massively changed in how it works. You don't get the instant rearm off bounce pad. The charge time has been changed from 1 second to 2 seconds. The knockup duration was reduced. So those like series of patches basically kind of remove the infinite juggle build, which is great because those types of mechanics aren't intended to be in the game, right? It's just something that was discovered, and they're like, all right, that's too strong. Time to nerf that. That being said, I actually really like the change to the lasso, which is like
Me
a
too.
little bit less reduced duration on the base, but when using a bounce pad, you get an extra second and a half, which is super cool. So this is like kind of the idea for what Holiday is supposed to be, right? Like she is meant to like be built around this lasso, and this is a really cool way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think anytime you can organically give two spells synergy, I think it just makes it much more fun to play. A little bit of skill ceiling involved as well. Yeah, all around, get rid of the cheese, add a little bit more flair to the synergy of the spells. I dig it.
Absolutely. Do you I'm not sure Kelvin is worth talking about. I will say 7 Stormcloud, the secondary ability,
Yeah.
getting changed from a 2-second delay to 0.25 seconds is actually really sick.
Yeah.
Because it was impossible to hit before, and now it actually feels like a real ability. So that's a great quality of life change. It is just a general buff as well, which is nice. But the next real big set of changes are to Mr. Sinclair, which
Yeah.
I didn't even know the first line existed, to be honest. I didn't know this was a thing.
Which first line are you
No,
talking about? The damage mechanic rework?
no, the headshot damage reduction. I didn't
Oh,
realize Sinclair had 35%
yeah,
headshot
that's
damage
actually pretty
reduction.
insane. That's like one of those hidden mechanics where like the way Valve works with Dota as well is you only see that kind of stuff if you test it in a lobby. Like I remember learning the day like way back when the game came out that 7 had reduced headshot damage, which later has been removed. But I was like, wait, what? And then so apparently, 35% is a lot, by the way. your headshots are doing like 50% more damage to him now. So, yeah. I mean, okay, wait, real quick. I'm assuming that that's him taking headshots, not
Correct.
doing headshots. Okay, yeah. So,
Yeah, this is like when you headshot Sinclair, he
yeah,
was taking, instead of double damage, he was taking
taking
like what?
165%. Yeah.
Yeah, 165,
Mm.
which is like pretty substantial.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage. Bonus. You're
So
literally losing 50% of the bonus. Like that's pretty crazy, actually. So, yeah, that's good. That kind of stuff. I wonder if they just put it in there because they know he's going to be a bit difficult to use as a hero. So make it a little bit tougher to kill you on release, and then once people are getting a bit more used to it, just make him like everybody else, basically. Like maybe that's the idea behind it, because obviously audience participation is quite a unique spell being added to the game. So wouldn't be surprised if it's something like that.
yeah, I mean they've done this with heroes that just have large heads, right? This was the idea
True.
behind Seven. They're like his head is way too big, and Sinclair has this giant top hat that is also part of his hitbox, and I
I
think
didn't
that
even think about the
that was
fact that his hat is literally part of his head for the hitbox. Yeah.
yeah, and so I was like maybe that was the idea behind it, but it's also like not a great way of balancing the like hero. I don't know, but it was funny. I was like, I didn't know this was a thing. Cool thing that it was removed though. But I agree. I think the most interesting change to Sinclair in this patch is probably the way audience participation works, where they're just setting up this hero to have some sick ultimate steals and some really cool plays.
Yeah, I think that's like we've talked about Rubik being one of the most iconic heroes in all of Dota. I think anytime you have a hero that steals other spells, it just adds so much flair, so much Sinclair. You know, I realized that rhymed. Just flashiness to the game. And team fights are already chaotic as it is in Deadlock. So playing Sinclair, it's not only that it's buffing the hero, but it's also giving you twice as long to actually. You don't feel rushed. I feel like with 10 seconds to use your spell rather than, or sorry, use it having 20 seconds to use it rather than 10. In the middle of a team fight, you're going to kind of get to be a lot more patient and selective about your targeting. And that's like not only a huge buff, but it's just such a good quality of life thing for your ability to execute. Because you're also playing effectively 6 other heroes in the game, right? When it comes to their ultimates. So
Yeah, I love it. I'm a big fan of it. In terms of the rest of the patch notes, slight changes to Vindicta, reducing some of her bullet damage, Crow projectile speed reduced, and T2 assassinate damage reduced. Just very slight nerfs, which I think are fine. Every once in a while, Vindicta kind of becomes too strong and becomes too good at snowballing.
I was gonna
So
say she's like the most snowbally hero in the game. So
yeah, so I think this is just a nice little balance. The goo ball turn rate improved, and then the last thing is Viper, who bullet growth rate was actually increased, which is interesting because we had the across the board bullet damage reductions in the last patch, which some people were complaining that this really hurt Viper, but Viper has like the slide mechanic, infinite ammo, and insane attack like bullet speed, but or rate of fire, I guess you could say. But they felt like it wasn't that good, so they buffed it back up slightly. And then some changes to the Bola. It was actually um, there were some issues with the Bola. Like, how do you? I don't know how the petrify what they mean by breakable, but change the petrify to no longer be breakable. So
is
I'm
that
guessing
like the
there was some
effectively
way.
like disjointable or something, or like
I
breakable
wonder
is a
if they mean
weird
like
word here.
yeah. I think maybe they're talking about the fact that like you might have been able to unstoppable out of it,
Oh,
which I
mm.
don't think was the case, because unstoppable is not supposed to work against that status effect. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
wondering if that was a mistake.
Hmm.
Um,
That could
but
be it, though. I
I
guess that might
yeah
be it. That it was working that way, and they didn't mean it to be. So,
yeah Petrify is
interesting.
not listed in any of the status effects for that one. So I'm wondering if that's what they mean by it.
Uh
Um, But yeah, overall, some pretty good changes in the patch. The next one to spirit damage. Do you want to take this one? Because I feel like this was actually a pretty big change.
Yeah, I mean, the 50% spear damage is now 50% less effective against objectives. They specifically also had it that a line saying abilities no longer have one-off values. There's enough complexity and depth in this game. You don't need to have like this spell does 30% less, this spell does 70% less, this spell does full damage. I think it's just easier to understand. I see number 100, it's going to do 50 damage to an objective. But also just overall, the long range sieging seems to be is what they were addressing. Also, not only with that damage nerf, but also with the fact that shrines are no longer vulnerable also to spirit damage from distance. And on top of that, there was that cheese where you stand on top of the walker and you're in this weird like invulnerability zone where it can't hit you and you could just mow it down. So overall, I think this game will always benefit from objectives being slightly more difficult to take. And obviously, we never want cheese in the game. It's fun that people discovered it or whatever, but get it out of there. So overall, making people invest a little bit more. It's not really fun to see your walkers or guardians just kind of getting sieged from long range, and you can't really do much about it. It's like, yeah, maybe it's like there's a limit to the range that people can actually damage it from, but like, I don't know, there's something different about the person having to stand still and shoot it compared to, you know, jumping around and tossing spells and having it do like a significant chunk of damage to your objectives. So yeah, I like these changes a lot.
Yeah, I'm you know, I will say like there are certain heroes that were much better than others at doing that, and I think it just makes sense, right? Like being able to just like lady guys bomb from a mile away and just like take down a building is, you know, pretty rough. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the patch. It was, I think, overall great changes, like we have come to expect with a lot of the Deadlock patches. Um, all mostly targeting the new heroes, but some little quality of life buffs there for you. You know, some of the heroes that if you guys like them. But the next big topic was something that actually I'm a huge troll on the Reddit forums. I don't really post much, but I do love reading different things that people are posting. And this one kind of caught my eye. I thought it was a little bit interesting. There was a leak by a Valorant streamer, and they said that they've been in talks with Valve, and there is a quote unquote event in July that most big streamers are already getting emails about. And they said it's kind of under NDA. And the whole idea was, is this a legitimate leak from a streamer? Is this going to be a Valve sponsored event in the summer for Deadlock? Or is this person just talking out of their ass? So I'm curious how you feel about this and what your like gut reaction is to something like this.
Well, I'm reading the comments, and one of the comments says, there is absolutely no chance that anything this person's saying is credible. This is not how Valve works. Everyone is free to speculate about what will happen this year, but nobody outside Valve will know for sure. This is pure clickbait. The username being rkryptic.
I don't know who said that. I have no idea who said that. There's no way that guy. I would not trust that guy.
Yeah, I don't believe that either. I mean, I'll be honest though, like it's hard to believe. All jokes aside, it's hard to believe that this is necessarily like accurate, but also like it's the most random shit to make up in the world, and I don't feel like Deadlock's in a position for like if he's gonna meme about some huge release, wouldn't he choose like Marvel Rivals or something?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
true,
Like there's like kind of like a more buzz topics in the shooter game world than Deadlock. So I just know, you know, dropping names, his name's FRTT. I actually know him. He's a part of Liquid, and it's not that I'm saying I know him, so he must be trustworthy. It just seems like the most random stuff to make up, knowing that he's like a Valorant streamer that is also playing Marvel Rivals. So like, did he just decide one day I'm going to stir some shit when it comes to Deadlock? That's like maybe he's not being fully forthcoming, or maybe he's being a bit cryptic. He's cryptic, but you know, I feel like he's how do I word this? He probably wasn't supposed to say anything about this, and so I'm just gonna say this: I wouldn't be surprised that there is something happening with this game. The likelihood that Valve is truly like investing in playing and paying their streamers to play their game, that's relatively unheard of to me. Maybe it's some affiliate related thing where I don't know, but I guess that's the most difficult to believe portion of this. Yeah. But based on everything we've been saying about what we want from Valve this year, this whole idea of like releasing the game into beta, perhaps into open beta, and having some big announcement event, that kind of lines up with everything we
The
hoped they would
timeline.
do. Yeah, and the timeline.
And the
Exactly.
timeline.
Yeah.
We said June, July is when we hope that they would have their last hero releases and be putting the game out into open beta. So like that was the part to me where I was like, man, is this guy actually right? Like, does he actually know something that we don't? Um, like, is Valve thinking about doing like something like this? I'm with you. I think are they planning a release event of some kind for when the game comes out into open beta? I think they have to. They absolutely do. We've said this in previous podcasts. We said they absolutely need to plan an event to announce Deadlock, right? There has to be something to drive in engagement, to drive in people into the game. Now, I'm with you also the fact that, like, is Valve going to sponsor a bunch of streamers? Probably not, because it's just not something they've ever done. But maybe they are taking a new approach, and that's kind of where I wanted to move the discussion in the first place. Is Valve going to kind of break the trend of not really marketing their games, and are they gonna like actually get invested in their communities and building them up? Like, do you think that's a change that Valve can make?
I wouldn't, bet my life on it ever, or bet anything on it for that matter. But I believe Valve are genius game designers, and that anybody is capable of trying things a different way than what they were previously doing. So all bullshit aside, I think it's quite possible. I would love nothing more than, I don't want to say it's like Valve admitting they're wrong or something, but it's like Valve admitting that there's potentially a better way or a different way, or perhaps everybody else who does advertise is onto something. Crazy concept that they literally everyone else does this, so maybe they're onto something. I hope so. Is it likely? No, but at the same time, there's always room for change. And they've also, like, when they implemented ranked in Deadlock, yeah, they've already reverted a bit of it, but like giving it the ranked window systems and stuff, of like time of day, I guess I'm saying like they're trying different versions of what they've already done already in Deadlock. Like there's precedent to this. So yeah, I don't think it's too unheard of for them to do something completely different. What are you feeling about it? I know you've kind of expressed there was this guy named rkryptic on the Reddit thread that kind of expressed his
That guy stole my name. That wasn't
Yeah.
me. That wasn't me. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Don't Google me.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm hopeful, right? I think Deadlock is something that Valve is putting a lot of kind of eggs into this basket, and they need it to be successful. And it's not because like they're gonna struggle, monetarily if this game's not successful. Let's just throw that out the window. Valve will never struggle with money. My main thing is, like, this is a company that loves to make games, and they have flopped every game that they've come out with for the last like 6 years ish.
Hmm.
CS2, unmitigated disaster. Artifact, completely dead on arrival. What was the Underlord? Dota Underlords, dead on arrival. Like, they have dropped the ball game after game after game, and they really need a win here to get people like kind of excited and back into like wanting to play Valve games. I think the only real success that they had was with Half-Life Alyx, which was a beautiful game, absolutely amazing, completely changed push the boundaries of what VR was capable of, and that was why they made it. And Deadlock is one of these games that I think people love a lot, and I think it would not surprise me if Valve changes their ways with this, knowing that it needs to be a win for them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, reputation does matter a lot, and also, yeah, like there was definitely an ego hit when Artifact went the way it did. Obviously Valve kind of dropped it immediately, and I feel like it's kind of like the Voldemort of Valve's, just he who shall not be named, Artifact.
No, we don't talk about Artifact.
Yeah, except for Slacks. Slacks will always talk about Artifact.
Yeah.
There's still times at events where like him and Lacoste and them are actually playing Artifact together. But that's a side note. No, I definitely think that there has to be some degree of pride slash belief in yourself that you can still make a game that's going to become super popular. Like, I don't know. There's just times where in my life I want to prove that I still got it for myself with whatever regards that it is. And even if you're making a gajillion dollars off of Steam, there's just something to be said that other than like the Steam marketplace itself and the Steam Deck, I, as like a, you know, Valve loyalist, I'd say, meaning like I obviously love Dota and Deadlock as well, that like there hasn't been some raving success for Valve in the recent past at all. So I hope they're as invested in it as I feel like I would be if I was in their spot in terms of its success. And invested does not mean monetarily. It just means that people will flock to this game. That's what happened when they originally released it. There's proof that this game is already great as a game itself. And I'm a firm believer that all the writings on the wall that says, hey, just freaking advertise this game, give us some battle passes, give us some in-game events, encourage streamers to play this game, because the rest of the game will speak for itself, you know? So if I feel like it's that obvious, I would love to think that Valve, you know, sees even more than I do. And so, yeah, even though it's kind of like a memes leak post, there's
some things you take from it.
There's definitely some takeaways for sure.
Yeah, I agree. As much as I was like really hating on the post initially,
the guy named rkryptic on the Reddit thread, you mean?
Yeah, I mean the other guy. Yeah, was hating on the post initially. It's one of those things that like, it's like the leak is so vague and just not detailed. And there's someone in here who actually translated the whole thing. He's like, yeah, I mean, I speak Portuguese. Like, this is complete. He's like, it's very. I can't remember the words he was saying, but yeah, he said it also seemed very clickbaity and like kind of vague. So not a lot of details. Could it be real? Maybe. Do I want it to be real? Yeah, I would. I would love it to be real. And it does line up with what we said. You know, the release window for what we hope would be the open beta would be this summer, and it's doable. I still firmly believe it's doable with the rate that they're working on Deadlock. I think it can happen. There's only 4 more heroes in the labs that are being close to finished, so we could be seeing them sooner rather than later. I don't know if there's much else I really want to talk about that, but I do have one quick question for you.
That's me.
How long do you think until our next hero release?
I'm thinking they're going to go down to like 2 at a time rather than 1. So I don't think they're going to go like 4, then 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I'm thinking we're going to get 2 at the same time. Probably like late March would be my guess. Give it like a month or month and a half. What about you? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking March as well. Somewhere either early or mid-March, but yeah, March, it was kind of my idea, because it seems like now that we've got these 4 heroes in, people are still experimenting with them. The next thing would be to do like another lane pass, you know, like what they did with Park, and just update some of the other lanes, and the general look of the world. You know, some more visual updates to the game, I think, go a long way, and we'll see if that's where they end up going. But yeah, okay. I'm kind of on the same ballpark. I was curious if you were going to say, you know, this month or not, but I feel like it is going to be March.
Sounds like we're on the same page then.
All right. Well, we're pretty much winding things down here to the end of the episode. There is, well, I guess I'll mention it after, but let's do our final segment we always do, which is the what did we learn this week? And I am curious, Brian, what did you learn this week?
You know, I was kind of visiting the idea of dopamine again in my life, and I had this epiphany moment on Saturday where I realized it's actually in studies proven that we experience a lot of our dopamine when we have an expectation of something, like something indicates that we pull this lever and we're going to get food. It's not that when we eat the food that we get the dopamine. It's when we pull the lever because we know we're going to get food. So then my life, I was just like, wow, that means life is all about expectations and managing them and making sure that I'm just aware of what expectations I have all the time. And that was just a really cool epiphany moment that I had for myself this week. So I'm kind of like digesting that one currently.
Cool. That's an interesting topic. I
Yeah.
like that.
Could probably do an entire 2-hour podcast on that one, but go ahead. What's yours? What
Yeah.
did you learn this week?
Mine is not nearly that existential and deep.
Thank you.
Mine was mostly about the fact that uh I've been on a little bit of a this last year was a big healthier for me in terms of changing kind of my lifestyle.
Nice.
I've been going to the gym 3 days a week for
Let's go.
16 months now. Um, and then my goal this year was to start my first ever like cut in a way. So I'm in like a calorie deficit, and there is nothing that will put you in a calorie deficit quite like food poisoning, apparently. And boy, oh boy, did that really throw off my entire like week's worth of like controlling and managing my diet. So I will say be careful about what you eat.
Life hacks with Ricky, guys. If you're trying to go for a calorie deficit, you can take a shortcut by just giving yourself just a mild case of food
Oh
poisoning.
my god. Yeah, that one was rough.
It sounds like you highly recommend this approach.
Yeah, no, I do not recommend this. Do
Oh,
not take shortcuts.
misunderstood that. My bad.
No, it was horrible. I like still and to this day, after like almost a full week, I like am still like weak, and like my appetite's not fully back. So don't give yourself food poisoning is my advice, and just slow and steady is I guess like the way to do it, right? It's small but gradual change over time. That is the better, healthier way to do things.
I'm off to eat some raw chicken. I'll be back.
All right, great. Yeah,
That's what we
fantastic.
learned with Ricky this week. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad I could be helpful, everybody. You're
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you.
So we've finished up episode 14. One thing I do want to say,
This is
though,
15.
15. I'm sorry, I said 15 at the beginning of the stream. I
You
promise.
did. You did.
We're finishing up episode 15. One thing I will say, which I'm excited to announce, I'm not going to say who, but we are going to be recording our first ever guest episode in just a little bit. Not like today, but like soon, either in the next week or two. Very excited for this episode. We've been talking about doing guest episodes for months. Like this is one of the first things we talked about, how we wanted to incorporate them into the podcast, but with just the constant balance changes that were coming to Deadlock, it made it really hard to kind of fit things into the schedule. But yeah, I'm excited. So look forward to that coming soon. Our first ever guest episode with a pretty great individual, I would say. I'm not going to leak who it is, but are you excited for that one, Brian?
Yeah, he seems kind of average to me.
Oh my god, bro! Come on.
What?
All right, whatever. Great way to end. No. I get it. I think it's a hilarious meme, but
Yeah.
you guys do with that verbiage as you will. We will bid you all farewell. Thank you all so much for tuning in and listening. If you're on Spotify or YouTube, make sure to subscribe, and then we will see you guys in our next episode here in about a week. See you then.